Hello, my dear children. It's your old friend Gramps Oxley here again with a story that'll remind you that great things don't grow overnight. You see, in this fast world, everyone wants to bloom like lightning. But true growth, my little ones, happens like sunrise, slow, steady, and full of light. Now, let me take you to a quiet farming village in the British countryside many years ago, where two boys stood side by side, chasing one dream, but walking two very different paths. In the small village of Willow, life was simple but hard. People lived off the land, growing wheat, potatoes, and barley. Children helped their parents in the fields, and in the evenings, the smell of fresh bread filled the air. At the edge of the village stood a tiny school, barely 30 students, one classroom, and a blackboard that always seemed dusty. But inside those old stone walls, dreams were alive. Dreams of leaving the village one day, of becoming something more. Among those students were two boys, Ryan and Daniel. Ryan was the top student every year, sharp, quick, and confident. His father owned most of the farmland, and many of the students' parents worked for him. Ryan's clothes were always clean, his books new, and his confidence a little too high. Daniel, on the other hand, was quiet. He came from a humble family. His father repaired shoes, and his mother sold vegetables in the market. Daniel wasn't the best in class, but he worked hard. He sat in the back row taking notes carefully, hoping one day he'd make his parents proud. One morning, the school principal entered the classroom with a bright smile. "Students," he said, "I bring exciting news. A college in London is holding a competition for young researchers. They want you to go into the forest, find medicinal herbs, learn their local uses, and prepare a report with real samples. The best project will win a full scholarship to study at the university." The room buzzed with excitement. Ryan raised his hand first, proudly. "I'll take part, sir," he said. "I'll finish it in a month." A few other students followed. Then, to everyone's surprise, Daniel slowly raised his hand too. The class went silent for a moment, then burst into laughter. "Daniel, you can't even afford a bus ticket to the forest," one boy whispered. Another said, "Ryan will win easily. He has everything he needs." But Daniel just smiled quietly. "I'll still try, sir." The principal nodded. "Good. Let's see who has the courage to finish." That very weekend, Ryan jumped into his father's car, drove to the forest, and began collecting samples. He was fast, organized, confident, noting down names and sticking herbs in his book. Meanwhile, Daniel rode there on his bicycle. It took him hours to reach the same place Ryan did in 20 minutes. But he didn't complain. He parked his old bike under a tree and started walking through the forest, talking to the locals and carefully writing in his notebook. For a week, Ryan found more herbs than anyone else. He bragged in class, "I've almost finished. I'll submit mine early." The students clapped. Daniel said nothing. He just kept working quietly. But soon, the skies changed. Dark clouds gathered above the village, and rain began to pour. Not a drizzle, a storm that lasted for days. The paths turned to mud, and the forest became slippery and dangerous. Ryan looked out the window and shrugged. "I've already done enough," he said lazily. "I'll go after the rain stops." One day passed, then another, then 5, and still he didn't go back. But Daniel, every morning he wore his old raincoat, packed his notebook in a plastic cover, and rode his bicycle through the storm. Sometimes the rain hit so hard he could barely see the road. Sometimes his shoes were soaked and his hands frozen. But he kept saying to himself, "Just one more plant today, just one more note." He met the herbalists living deep in the woods, learned how each leaf was used to heal fever, pain, or poison. He even made small sketches beside each plant to remember them. 2 months later, the deadline arrived. One by one, students submitted their projects. Bright covers, neat papers, colorful labels. Ryan's report looked perfect, fancy, well-designed, and full of samples. But inside, many herbs were common garden plants, not true medicinal ones. Daniel walked in last. His folder was damp. The pages curled from the rain. But when the principal opened it, he saw detailed drawings, handwritten notes, pressed real herbs, and even letters from forest dwellers explaining their uses. Weeks later, a letter arrived from London University. The results were out. The entire school gathered in the assembly hall. The principal stood on stage, smiling. "The judges have chosen the winner," he said, "not for handwriting, not for appearance, but for effort, accuracy, and dedication. The full scholarship goes to Daniel Reed." The hall erupted in applause. Daniel stood frozen. His hands trembled. Even Ryan clapped slowly, realizing the truth. All his talent, speed, and comfort couldn't match the power of Daniel's perseverance. So remember, my dear ones, don't rush to build your dreams overnight. Even a single seed planted every day can grow into a mountain of beauty. Because the world doesn't remember the loudest, it remembers the ones who never stopped. Success doesn't come to those who start fast. It comes to those who keep going no matter the weather. Talent may shine for a moment, but consistency lights the whole path. And if you keep showing up, even when no one's watching, you'll one day find yourself standing where dreams come true. Because real winners aren't born brilliant. They're built one rainy day at a time. So keep planting your seeds, my dear children, and one day you too will stand on your own cloud hill, watching your garden touch the sky.